when you first hear about a police unit being disbanded, it usually sounds like bureaucratic housekeeping, a budget cut here, a restructuring there, nothing to lose sleep over. But what happens when that decision isn't really about money? What happens when it's allegedly about protecting the very criminals that unit was hunting? Today, we are looking at two parallel investigations running in South Africa.
One is the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry.
The other is Parliament's own ad hoc committee, and both were triggered by a single extraordinary warning from a sitting provincial police commissioner back in July 2025. That warning alleged that the country's entire criminal justice system, the police, the judiciary, even political structures has been extensively infiltrated by criminal syndicates. And at the center of this storm is a sidelined police minister, a disbanded elite task force, and a businessman or alleged criminal mastermind with the nickname Cat. Let's start with the man who lit the fuse.
Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
He is the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, and on July 6, 2025, he went public with allegations that shook the highest levels of government. His core claim was straightforward but devastating. The criminal justice system has been compromised from within. But the trigger for his decision to speak out, that came on December 31st, 2024. New Year's Eve, that was the day the then police minister issued a directive to disband the National Political Killings Task Team. He described this as the final straw. In his statement, he argued the team was highly successful and dissolving it was designed to shield politically connected members of a criminal syndicate from prosecution. Now, who was the minister who signed that letter?
That's Senzo Mchunu.
He has been sidelined from his position following these allegations, but he did not go quietly. When he appeared before the parliamentary committee, he defended the disbandment as inevitable. First, he pointed to a 2019 report that recommended integrating the unit into the General Murder and Robbery Unit. Second, he cited human rights concerns. He said there were complaints of abuses from civil society, from whistleblowers, etc. Third, he raised budget pressure. He argued that funding one specific unit in one province was unsustainable compared to needs elsewhere, like the Cape Flats. And finally, he said the unit's focus was too narrow, it didn't address broader criminality. But here's where things get complicated, because multiple witnesses testified that his justifications don't hold up under scrutiny. The first major contradiction involves procedure.
National Police Commissioner Fanny Masemola testified that he was on leave when the directive was signed.
He said, and I quote, "It looks like it happened by design that I was on leave." He was not consulted.
Neither was Deputy Minister Casel Matlale. In fact, Matlale initially thought that the news of the disbandment was fake.
Then there's the head of SAP's legal services, Major General Petronelle van Rooyen. Her testimony was even more damning. She said the minister, and I quote again, unlawfully strayed into the constitutional competence of the National Commissioner. On the budget front, the Chief Police Financial Officer testified that the minister never discussed the PKTT budget with her and the roughly 435 million rand spent since 2018. That was not exorbitant compared to other operations. So the financial argument appears thin. And on the human rights claims,
Commissioner Baloyi
directly challenged the minister. She asked how he could act on untested complaints without verifying them with police management. Her question was blunt. How is that a sound or defensible thought process? So if the official reasons don't hold up, the commission started asking, what was the real reason? That brings us to the name that keeps appearing in the testimony.
Vusumuzi Cat Matlala.
Now we move to the so-called Cat Cartel. He is a Pretoria-based businessman. But according to witnesses, he is also an alleged crime boss who had multiple senior police officers on his payroll. One of the most explosive testimonies came from a witness identified only as Witness C, who was a member of the task team itself. He testified that Kat claimed to have paid 500,000 Rand to fund the Minister of Police's political campaign, specifically that money was linked to the ANC's 113th anniversary celebrations in January 2025.
For the record, Mchunu has denied ever meeting Matlala.
But then there's the middleman,
Brown Mukhots.
He is alleged to be the link between the minister and Kat. How strong is the evidence? Well, the commissions heard that Brown apparently knew the task team would be disbanded before it was official.
He allegedly texted Matlala that the team harassing him had been dissolved, and Kwanazi testified that Mkhotsi possessed confidential police documents and occurrence books that no civilian should have access to.
His alleged influence didn't stop at the political level. Far from it. Now we move to corruption within the SAPS top brass.
The commissions heard that Matlala allegedly had multiple high-ranking officers on his payroll. Take Shadrach Spear.
He is a suspended deputy national commissioner. The allegation is that he received up to 1 million Rand a month in bribes. That included 2 million Rand for a plot of land and some 20 impalas or some kind of bushveld animals. Then there is Major General Richard Shibiri.
Matlala reportedly contributed 80,000 Rand to a party celebrating his promotion.
And Major General Feroz Khan allegedly demanded 2.5 million Rand from Kat, receiving 500,000. Beyond direct bribes, there were tender irregularities.
Matlala allegedly irregularly secured a 360 million Rand SAPS Health Services contract.
That contract has since been cancelled. So what you have is a picture of systemic capture. But to understand how deep this goes, you have to go back to a single murder. The one we mentioned at the beginning, the Armand Swart case. He was an engineer on April 17, 2024. He was killed, and according to commission testimony, his death was almost certainly a case of mistaken identity. He worked for a company that was exposing procurement fraud in a Transnet contract. The intended target was likely a more senior employee. The alleged hitman,
a man named Katiso Mulev, known as KT, described as an alleged crime kingpin.
He was arrested in December 2024, but here's where the investigation gets truly disturbing. A single AK-47 found with suspects in Bramley was linked via ballistics not just to Swart's murder, but also to the murders of DJ Somebody, DJ Vintos, and another prominent figure. One weapon, multiple high-profile assassinations. Yet the initial ballistics reports from the Pretoria lab were riddled with errors. They failed to connect these cases. It was only after the task team intervened that the links were made. And remember that backlog we mentioned? SAPS currently faces over 41,000 ballistics cases waiting for processing. That number isn't an administrative footnote. It is a systemic failure that allows violent criminals to operate with near impunity. All of this has exposed something even more fundamental: the sheer dysfunction inside the police ministry itself. Now we move to institutional governance concerns.
Deputy Minister Caselle Matlala gave testimony that is almost hard to believe.
He said that despite being in his role for over a year, the minister never assigned him specific responsibilities or a delegation of authority. He literally said, "I don't know what was going through his mind when he wrote that letter." The Director of Public Prosecutions in KZN learned about the task team's disbandment via social media, not through official channels and the 121 case dockets that were transferred from the task team to the national office in Pretoria. They reportedly sat untouched for months before being returned. So where do these inquiries stand?
The Madlanga Commission, chaired by Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, has a broader scope.
It is investigating infiltration into law enforcement, intelligence, the judiciary, and the role of the national executive.
Parliament's ad hoc committee has a more focused mandate: the specific allegations against Senzo Mchunu and the governance lapses.
Both are still hearing evidence, both are still digging, but one thing is already clear. The picture emerging from these testimonies is not of isolated failures. It is of a system where the lines between law enforcement and the underworld have become dangerously blurred, and until those ballistics backlogs are cleared, until those delegated authorities are defined, and until someone explains why a civilian had access to confidential police dockets, the question hanging over all of this is not just who was protecting whom. It is whether the justice system can still protect anyone at all.